My name is Fallon, 25 years old. That night, amid the laughter and bright lights of our home, my older brother, Colton, shoved me into the kitchen corner, fracturing my ribs. I can still hear my mother whispering, "Stay quiet, darling. Don't let anyone know. Colton has a future ahead of him." But the stabbing pain in my chest hurt less than realizing this truth. In my parents' eyes, family reputation mattered more than my life. The next day at the clinic, a female doctor looked at me and said bluntly, "Fallon, you're safe now." In that moment, I knew I could no longer stay silent. Have you ever had to choose between telling the truth and keeping quiet to preserve your family's image? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue this tearful, yet powerful, journey together. And to understand why a push from my brother could break not only my ribs but also my faith in the word family, I need to take you back to the beginning. To the town of Oak Ridge, Michigan, the Harris family was the picture-perfect example people spoke of with admiration. My father, Richard Harris, built his real estate career from nothing. He appeared regularly in local newspapers as a successful businessman, a man controlling major projects in the region. My mother, Diane, was famous among Oak Ridge's powerful women. President of a charity, organizer of hospital fundraising galas, no event took place without her leading the charge. From the church to community clubs, the Harris name meant prestige and honor. And Colton, my brother, was in a league of his own. He was regarded as the brilliant heir. From a young age, Colton was showered with praise. "He has leadership qualities," my father would often say to his friends. Whenever he ran wild through the house, breaking mother's expensive vases in the living room, it was brushed off with a single sentence: "Active boys grow up to be successful." Meanwhile, I, the little sister, picked up the shattered pieces through tears as mother sighed and said, "You must give way to your brother. Girls need to learn patience." I still remember one time when I was 8 years old, Colton grew angry after losing at a building block game. He hurled the set at me, bruising my arm. I burst into tears, hoping my parents would defend me. But instead of scolding Colton, my father growled, "Fallon, stop making a fuss over trivial things. You must learn strength. No one respects a weak girl." That sentence embedded itself in my memory, turning pain into silence that stretched across the years that followed. As I grew older, Colton's anger didn't stop at breaking toys or throwing blocks. He began using words to hurt. "Idiot, ugly, nobody cares about you." These were phrases that echoed constantly down our hallway. I once turned to mother, hoping someone would finally stand up for me. She merely smiled, stroking my hand. "That's how your brother jokes. My daughter is too sensitive. Toughen up, Fallon." And so, the scratches on my heart were never bandaged, layering over each other year after year. Colton, of course, remained the pride of the family. When he earned only average math grades, my parents hosted a party and invited their friends. Meanwhile, when I received a statewide academic excellence award, they simply nodded. "Good, that's how a well-behaved daughter should be." This difference in treatment made me understand that my place in the family would never be equal. The irony was that I was the only child with a true dream: painting. From childhood, I was enamored with brushes and colors. I spent hours by the window sketching the fields behind our house or the lake glowing in the afternoon sun. My art teacher once looked at me and said, "Fallon, you have talent. You should apply to art school. This gift shouldn't be wasted." I brought that advice home, my heart pounding with hope. But my father scoffed. "Painting is a pastime, not a profession. The Harris family needs doctors, lawyers, people with status. Don't waste time." Mother used a gentler tone, but it wasn't any different. "Sweetheart, art doesn't feed anyone. Make us proud through medicine." So I packed away my paints, tucked unfinished canvases into the drawer, and put on a white lab coat. I entered the medical field, not because it was my dream, but because I thought it was the only way my parents would acknowledge me. Over time, I realized that love in my family always came with conditions. Only when I obeyed and matched the image they wanted would I be accepted. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never compare to Colton. He didn't have to work that hard. Both father and mother looked at him with glowing eyes. Father often draped an arm over his shoulder, pounding his chest proudly. "My son will inherit the business. Fallon, you're good too, but your path is to support, to stand behind me." I studied day and night, lived in a dorm, and worked part-time jobs to cover expenses. Yet whenever I came home, I was still just the daughter standing outside the spotlight of the heir. There were nights I stayed awake in my small room, staring at my unfinished painting, a portrait still lacking color, and asked myself, was I truly living my own life, or merely playing a role in the perfection show my family scripted? To Oak Ridge, the Harris family was a pillar of the community. But to me, it was just a stage where everyone knew their part. My father as the successful man, my mother as the flawless woman, Colton as the golden child, and I, Fallon, the background. And in that script, anyone who dared go off-role would bring down the entire play. I didn't dare break the role, until that night. The night when the sound of my rib cracking ripped apart the curtain hiding my family's truth. I remember that evening clearly. The party my family threw to celebrate Colton being promoted to vice president at my father's company. Lights blazed across the house, the tables filled with expensive dishes mother had spent days preparing. Golden ribbons hung on the doors, and the words, "Congratulations, Colton," dominated the living room, making me feel as though I had stepped into a fairy tale coronation. Only I wasn't the princess. I was a forgettable supporting character. I spent the last of my monthly budget, the money meant for the electric bill, on a fine bottle of whiskey Colton liked. Walking into the house, I forced a smile and handed my brother the gift. "Congratulations, Colton. I know you like this. I hope it makes you happy." He took it, smirked. "Oh, you actually remember what I drink." The words were light but cut like a blade, implying my gift meant very little. During the party, everyone showered Colton with praise. My father raised his glass. "This is the first step toward my son inheriting the business. Harris Development will shine under Colton's leadership." Laughter and applause erupted. I clinked my glass too, but my heart was bitter. When I earned a medical school scholarship, no party like this was thrown. At most, father gave a nod and mother muttered a dry, "good." Throughout dinner, I tried to find a moment to join the conversation. I mentioned a unique case I had recently assisted with at the clinic, but mother quickly cut me off to ask, "Is there anyone decent and stable in Chicago you can date? People say it's odd for a doctor to stay single." Soft chuckles followed. I pressed my lips together and set my glass down. It became painfully clear. No one truly wanted to hear me speak. By the time the main course arrived, Colton was on his third glass of whiskey. Leaning back in his chair, laughing loudly, he bragged about his business deals. Signing contracts with major partners, father trusting him with the Riverside project. Every eye was fixed on him as though he were the center of the universe. I kept trying to stay composed, searching for any way to contribute so I could prove I mattered too. Then I made the mistake of mentioning Emily, Colton's new girlfriend. I had run into her a few times at the grocery store, a lovely and intelligent girl. I casually said, "I met Emily last week, she's really sweet. She even invited the whole family to the lake house this summer." I didn't expect that comment to be a match thrown into gasoline. Colton, mid-laugh, suddenly froze, his eyes darkening. "You talked to Emily? What did she tell you?" I hesitated, confused by his sudden anger. "Nothing much. She mentioned the trip. I think she genuinely wants to connect with the family. She should learn to keep her mouth shut about my private life." Colton growled, slamming his glass down so hard the whiskey splashed. The air instantly went stiff. Mother lowered her head, father cleared his throat, but no one stepped in to calm him. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Colton, she didn't say anything bad. It was a small conversation." Colton sneered, leaning toward me. "You're always pretending to be innocent, Fallon. Always acting sweet to win people over. Don't think I don't know how jealous you are of me." "Jealous?" I let out a disbelieving laugh. "You think I'm jealous of you?" My laughter made his face turn crimson. His eyes flared with rage. "Don't laugh at me," he roared, jumping to his feet, the wooden chair clattering to the floor behind him. Mother panicked. "Colton, stop. This is your celebration." Father stood, trying to place a hand on his shoulder, but Colton shook him off, stomping toward the kitchen to pour himself another drink. I told myself to calm things down. I followed him into the kitchen, resting my hand lightly on the counter. "Colton, I wasn't mocking you. I genuinely like Emily. I just wanted." He spun around, eyes bloodshot, whiskey breath heavy. "Shut up. You're always interfering, ruining everything for me. You think I don't notice? You're always trying to prove you're better." I shook my head, choking up. No, Colton. All I've ever wanted is to be treated fairly. Those words hit something inside him. His face twisted with rage. And before I could step back, he shoved me with both hands. I staggered, my back slamming into the sharp granite edge of the kitchen counter. A sickening crack echoed in my ears and my breath was cut off. Pain exploded through my chest, radiating across my whole body. I collapsed to the floor, clutching my chest, mouth open but unable to draw air. Screams filled the room. Mother rushed in. Oh my God. Fallon. Father hesitated for a beat, then pulled Colton away from me. I tried to speak, but every inhale felt like 1,000 knives stabbing me. What's wrong with her? Mother cried. Colton snapped quickly, voice shaking but still denying everything. She slipped. She hit the table herself. Gasping, I wheezed through sobs. He pushed me. But my words were lost in the chaos. No one wanted to hear. Father knelt down, lowering his voice. Fallon, don't make a scene. It was a fall. We have guests out there. You must protect the family's dignity. My eyes went from father to mother and finally to Colton, the brother who had shattered my ribs. In their eyes, I saw no concern for me. Only calculation. How to hide this, how to keep the perfect family image from cracking. In that agonizing moment, I realized I had been reduced to a role. The obedient daughter, silent to preserve the Harris family's performance. But this time my bones had broken, and with them my blind trust had shattered too. I still remember the drilling pain in my chest as father leaned closer, his voice heavy and stern. Don't overreact. Take painkillers, rest a few days, you'll be fine. If this gets out, the company will collapse. Do you understand, Fallon? I forced myself to take shallow breaths so I wouldn't pass out. I need a hospital, I rasped. My ribs are broken. I can't breathe. Father scowled, eyes flashing that familiar anger that had made me shrink since childhood. Enough. You will not bring this up again. If anyone finds out, this family will be a laughingstock. Do you want to destroy everything? Mother placed a hand on my shoulder, her tone softer but equally forceful. Sweetheart, your father is right. We can't let a little accident ruin our image. Colton didn't mean it. Take some medicine, sleep it off. You'll feel better in the morning. I looked up at her, hoping to see real concern. But all I found was frantic damage control, more afraid of public opinion than my condition. A chilling emptiness spread through my throbbing body. I braced against the counter and forced myself to stand. No. I'll go by myself. Fallon. Father barked, but I was already stumbling away, each step stabbing my chest like a knife. I drove away from that house, the party lights still blazing behind me. Every bump on the familiar road made me want to faint, but staying under that roof scared me even more. I didn't go to the hospital right away. I was too exhausted, too dizzy. I wanted to escape them and reach my tiny apartment, where at least I could breathe, even if only in short, painful gasps. All night I barely slept. I sat slumped in my armchair, my chest rigid. Each time I tried to lie down, pain exploded, forcing me upright, cold sweat soaking my hair. I kept hearing Father's voice. If this gets out, the company will collapse. And Mother's. Don't overreact, darling. Think of Colton. At dawn, my phone rang. Mother's ringtone. I ignored it. Minutes later, it rang again, Father. Then Colton. Then Mother again. I silenced it, but the screen kept lighting up as if they were trying to trap me even after I fled. By late morning, a message arrived. Family always stands together. Think of Colton's future. Don't let impulsive emotions ruin everything. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. A delivery worker handed me a massive gift basket, wrapped in glossy cellophane and tied with a bright red bow. Inside were luxury items. Premium chocolates, vitamins, a bottle of vintage wine, even a silk scarf I knew Mother had bought from the most expensive shop in town. I opened the attached card. Mother's familiar handwriting read, "Family comes first. Rest and keep your mind calm. Love, Mother and Father." Not a single apology. No acknowledgement of the truth. Only one message: stay silent. They believed they could buy my silence with a few luxury items. I set the basket on the floor, not touching a thing. My heart ached, not just from broken ribs, but from realizing I was nothing more than a bargaining chip. They cared about the company, the reputation, about Colton. Me. I was the powerless piece expected to sacrifice. The phone rang again. Reluctantly, I answered. Father's voice came through, low and heavy. Fallon, do you understand what you're doing? If anyone finds out, everything ends. Do you want our company ruined? Do you want your brother's future destroyed? Don't be selfish like this. I fought back tears. I'm not selfish. I'm seriously injured. I need treatment. Father cut in, his voice sharp and cold. You're a doctor. You know a broken rib only needs rest and painkillers. The hospital can't do anything more. Don't turn a minor issue into a disaster. Mother grabbed the phone, her tone sweet but full of pressure. Fallon, listen to me. Think about it. If the police find out, if the press finds out, what will happen to Colton? He's your brother. He didn't mean it. Drop it. Blood ties matter above all else, and we must protect our own. I heard my own voice break out between sobs. Then who's going to protect me? There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Then Mother sighed. You'll understand when you have children of your own. Parents must do what's best for the child with a future. And that child is Colton. I bit my lip and hung up. Outside the window, daylight blazed, but inside me was a pitch-black void. I understood then, to my parents I would never be the center. I was never the child with a future in their eyes. I was the shadow meant to stay silent so my brother's brilliance could shine. I turned to look at the gift basket on the floor, its shimmering red bow almost mocking me. I felt sick. Last night I was shoved hard enough to break bones, and no one brought me to the emergency room. Today they sent chocolates and wine to cover the bruises under my skin. I collapsed into a chair, one hand clutching my chest, the other gripping the card. The words echoed in my head. Family always comes first. I thought, if family means silence and endurance, then where do I belong? The next morning I could barely lift myself from the chair. Pain radiated from my chest to my stomach. Each breath felt like a hand squeezing my lungs. I knew if I kept enduring this I might lose my life. I drove myself to a clinic on the outskirts of town, far from the center where too many familiar faces might see me. The sliding glass doors opened. The smell of antiseptic and bright lights suddenly made me feel safe. A nurse watched me walk in, clutching my chest, each step heavy, and frowned. I filled out a form, purposely leaving the cause of injury box blank. Not long after, dear Laura Hayes stepped in. She looked to be in her 50s, compact and composed, her voice calm yet warm. Fallon, I'm Dr. Hayes. I've reviewed your chart. You're having trouble breathing and significant chest pain, correct? Yes. It hurts a lot, doctor. She helped me lie on my side, her movements firm yet gentle. When she pressed along my ribcage, I couldn't stop a cry of pain. Her eyes darkened briefly, though her voice stayed professional. Possibly fractured ribs. I'll order an X-ray immediately. About half an hour later, the image appeared on the screen in front of me. 3 broken ribs, one visibly displaced. Hayes pointed to it and said plainly, Fallon, this wasn't a mild impact. Rib 7 is displaced dangerously. It could puncture your lung. Without close monitoring, you're at risk of a collapsed lung at any moment. A cold wave swept through me. My parents' words from the night before, just take painkillers and rest, suddenly felt like a cruel joke. What happened? She asked, her eyes not like a doctor filling out a chart, but like a human being who truly cared. I bit my lip, torn between silence and truth. All my life I'd been taught never to shame the family. But the pain in my chest wouldn't let me swallow the words anymore. My brother pushed me. We argued, and I hit the kitchen counter. The room fell quiet. I braced for her to frown, to judge me, or dismiss it like my parents always had. But she nodded slowly, her voice steady and calm. I understand. Thank you for telling me. Tears sprang to my eyes. A stranger, someone I'd never met, was the first person willing to listen. She sat down facing me, gentle but firm. Fallon, what you've described is domestic violence. And I must be honest, as a doctor I'm a mandatory reporter. I'm required to report this to the police. I froze, my heart pounding. No, please don't. My family, they'll go crazy. They'll cut you off? Blame you? She asked, her eyes sharp yet kind. I've heard this many times before. I've been where you are. I looked up, startled. You have. When I was 23, my father broke my arm during an argument. My mother begged me to lie to the hospital and say I fell down the stairs. And I did. 2 years later, he beat my mother so badly she suffered brain trauma. That's when I realized silence saves no one. It only makes things worse. Her words stabbed deep into my heart. I had thought I was alone, but in front of me sat a woman who had survived it too, speaking from her own scars. She leaned closer, meeting my gaze. Fallon, I understand this fear. But I also know what happens if you keep quiet. The only question is, will you keep letting Colton hurt you and possibly others, or will you stop it? I trembled, tears pouring down. I thought of Emily, Colton's new girlfriend. I imagined a future where, someday if he lost control, someone else might end up like me, or worse. I'm terrified, I sobbed. Of course you are. But being afraid doesn't mean you have to stay silent. She placed a warm hand over mine. I will be right here with you. We'll do this safely. In that moment, I felt a door cracking open. Outside lay a difficult path, but at least it existed. I was no longer trapped in the golden cage called the Harris family. I'm going to file the report, dear. Hayes said calmly, not asking permission but as though making a promise. And I'll also connect you with a victim advocate who can help you handle your family, the legal system, and yourself. Fallon, you don't have to fight alone anymore. Through the stabbing pain in my chest for the first time, I felt hope. A way out, however uncertain, was still better than the shadow of silence. News that the police had contacted the Harris household traveled faster than I expected. One day after Dr. Hayes filed the report, I got the first call from Father. His voice was heavy as lead. Fallon, you've done the most foolish thing in your life. The police called me this morning. What did you say? Are you trying to destroy Colton and this entire family? I tried to keep my voice steady, though my hands shook with pain and fear. I only told the truth. Colton pushed me. I have 3 broken ribs. I can't stay silent. On the other end, he took a harsh breath. If you have any sense left, withdraw the complaint immediately. If you insist on this, I'll let the lawyers handle it. You'll get not a single penny from this family, not a place in the will. You're on your own. I froze. I had always known love in our house was tangled with money and image, but hearing him say it so plainly still stole my breath. I answered softly, if a parent's love is worth only some money and a name in a will, then it doesn't matter whether I have it or not. He hung up. Less than an hour later, Colton started posting on social media. A short status, but everyone understood. It's sad when your own blood tries to drag you down for attention. I won't let lies destroy my life. Underneath, comments from his friends and co-workers piled up. Stay strong, Colton. We believe you. Don't let anyone ruin your family's reputation. Bet Fallon is stirring up drama again. I read each line, my heart shredding. In a few hours, all of Oak Ridge had begun whispering. I had become the traitor in their eyes. That afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My cousin Megan called. Fallon, are you insane? The whole family is buzzing. How could you accuse Colton? Everyone knows he's hot-tempered, but he'd never really hurt anyone. You're going too far. I gave a bitter laugh as tears fell. Were you there, Megan? Did you see him push me to the ground? There was a second of silence, then she replied hastily. Either way, you shouldn't have gotten the police involved. Family should handle things internally. I hung up. Immediately after came a call from Aunt Linda, Father's sister, her voice sharp. Fallon, you've shamed the whole family. Your mother has been crying her eyes out. Do the right thing, take back that lie. For years I had hoped that one day my family would acknowledge the truth, yet this moment showed me. No one wanted the truth. They only wanted to maintain the illusion. By evening my voicemail was full. Criticisms, accusations, even thinly veiled threats. A former friend messaged, Fallon, you've changed. You used to be such a good person. Now you're destroying your own family. Truly disappointing. Pain stabbed through my chest again. I felt like I had been sentenced, while the one who should be judged was still being protected. Just when I thought everyone had turned their back on me, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Fallon, it's Aunt Martha. I believe you. Call me when you're ready. Aunt Martha, Mother's younger sister, was someone I hadn't seen in years. I vaguely remembered her from a few old photos and from the way Mother used to speak of her with bitterness. Martha always likes to meddle. Don't be like her. Over time, she had disappeared from all our holidays. While the world pointed fingers at me, there was suddenly one gentle voice on my side. I texted back. Do you truly believe me? I believe you. I know what Colton is like. I've seen it. You're not crazy and you're not making this up. You're not alone. I burst into tears, clutching the phone like a life raft. In the midst of all the noise and blame, one outstretched hand was enough to keep me from collapsing. But I also understood. That message wasn't comfort. It was a doorway. A doorway leading me toward long-buried truths and secrets my family had worked hard to lock away. That afternoon, I had returned from the clinic with bandages wrapped around my chest when I heard loud knocking at my door. Peeking through the peephole, I saw my parents in the hallway. Father's arms were crossed, his face frosty. Mother clutched her purse, eyes red as though she had been crying, or rehearsing the look. I opened the door and stepped back halfway. What's going on? Father didn't waste time. He stepped inside, his voice firm. We need to talk. Right now. Mother followed, glancing around my small apartment with clear disdain. You really live here, Fallon? So different from our cozy home. I folded my arms, keeping close to the kitchen table. This is my home. I'm more comfortable here than anywhere else. Father cut me off, lowering his voice, each word a command. You must withdraw your statement. Say it was an accident. A slip. No one pushed you. Otherwise, you'll destroy Colton's career and drag the whole family down. I looked straight at him, my heart pounding, but my voice strangely calm. I lost my family a long time ago. Now I don't want to lose myself too. The air froze. Mother rushed toward me, grabbing my hand. Fallon, listen to me. You're angry, I get it. But Colton is your brother. He didn't mean it. You'll regret this if you keep going. Don't let this family fall apart. I pulled my hand back, my eyes stinging. The family isn't falling apart because I'm telling the truth. It's falling apart because all of you keep covering for someone who did wrong. Father slammed his hand against the table. The glass on it trembled. Enough. If you don't retract your statement, don't blame us for cutting you off. Financially, legally, everything. You'll have nothing. I bit my lip, the pain in my ribs seeming to flare. But I was no longer afraid. If the price of preserving this family is swallowing my voice, then I accept losing everything. Mother burst into tears, burying her face against Father's shoulder. He gripped her arm and dragged her toward the door, but before leaving he turned back. You'll regret this, Fallon. For the rest of your life. The door slammed shut. The apartment fell quiet again, though I knew the storm was far from over. A few days later, rumors began spreading at the hospital where I worked. A colleague leaned toward me and whispered, Fallon, I heard. Colton said you're mentally unstable? That you imagined the whole incident. I froze, blood rushing to my face. He said that to who? The colleague hesitated. He called the administration. Said you're under psychological strain, that your statement to the police shouldn't be trusted. People are starting to gossip. I swallowed hard. Despite years of enduring favoritism, I never imagined Colton would be cruel enough to tarnish my reputation where I had poured my entire youth. In the break room, a few nurses whispered as I walked in. One turned away, another pretended to busy herself with charts. I clearly caught one sentence. Maybe she really does have issues. Who reports their own brother? I sat quietly on a chair, my hands trembling. The pain in my ribs hadn't eased, but the pain of seeing my career shake was what truly stole my breath. I had studied for 10 years, survived countless overnight shifts. And now, because of one shove and a string of lies, everything threatened to crumble. That evening, I received a call from the department head. His voice was polite but distant. Fallon, there are concerns about your mental state. Administration suggests you take a short leave to focus on recovery. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. You believe Colton over Dr. Hayes's medical findings. He dodged. I'm not saying that. But to avoid trouble for the hospital, it's best you take some time off. I lowered the phone, my throat tight. I had never felt so alone. I never imagined I would end up rejected by my own family, whispered about by colleagues, my name dragged through mud. Every morning walking into the hospital, I felt dozens of eyes staring, not in respect for my work but in suspicion and rumor. Yet when everything seemed to collapse, hands began reaching out. Melanie, my best friend from college. was the first to show up. She didn't ask whether I was right or wrong, nor did she demand explanations. Instead, she arrived with a bag of pastries and hot coffee, placing them on my kitchen counter as she simply said, "Eat. You don't need to say anything. I'm here." Over the years, I had grown used to fighting alone, justifying my existence in a biased family, so much that I forgot sometimes I deserved someone who remained by my side for no reason at all. Aunt Martha also called as soon as she heard everything had exploded. Her voice was steady, solid, the opposite of the weakness my parents had always described. "I believe you. You're not crazy and you're not making it up. You're doing what the adults in this family never had the courage to do." One rainy afternoon, I went to her house. It sat at the end of a tree-lined street, scented with pine. She greeted me with a tight hug, so long it made me gasp, like she was trying to make up for all the years I'd been left alone. We lingered in her living room as rain tapped against the porch. I told her about the pressure, the lies, the career slipping away. She listened quietly, never interrupting. Only when I finished wiping my eyes did she sigh and say something I had never imagined. "Fallon, do you know why your mother and I barely speak? It wasn't distance or being too busy. It's because I dared to speak out. I criticized how they favored Colton. I told them their ways would crush your spirit. And they cut me out of the family circle ever since." I was stunned. So I wasn't the first one to be isolated. Aunt Martha continued, "They forgive no one who challenges them. But I've never regretted it. Because seeing you today, hurt but brave enough to tell the truth, I know you're stronger than I ever was." I held her hand, thin and frail yet strangely warm. In that moment, I realized that blood ties didn't have to be a cage. They could be support, if it was true family. Melanie and Aunt Martha didn't support me with words alone. They went with me to meetings of a victim support group that a doctor at the hospital had recommended. At first, I hesitated, afraid I would have to revisit painful memories, afraid of being judged. But that first night, sitting in a small room with a dozen strangers, I cried. Not because I was pitted, but because for the first time I realized I wasn't alone. There were women abused by their husbands, men discarded by their families for not being successful enough, children who had grown up in neglect. All of them carried wounds, but when they shared their stories, I saw sparks of courage in them. A girl sitting next to me whispered, "Thank you for coming. Hearing your story makes me feel like I'm not crazy anymore." Slowly, I began to find pieces of myself I thought I'd lost. I started drawing again. At first, it was scribbles on scrap paper during sleepless nights. Then Melanie secretly bought me a watercolor set, left it on my desk with a little note. "Let color heal you." I held the paintbrush, my hand trembling. The first smudges of color bled out without form, but I felt my heart settle. Art had never been a job, it was breath itself. I had buried it too long, under the pressure to be perfect, to serve the family, as my parents demanded. One evening, I gave Aunt Martha a painting. It depicted a wooden door, slightly ajar. Outside, rain poured down in sheets, but inside, warm yellow light glowed. She stared at it for a long time, then murmured, "This is you, Fallon. You're stepping out of the storm." Tears fell, but this time not from pain but from knowing I still had hope. I began carrying a sketchbook to meetings. Each time someone shared, I drew a symbol of their story. A bird cage with its door open, a river flowing over stones, a flower blooming through a crack. People looked at the drawings and smiled. Some burst into tears. I realized art wasn't healing me, it could comfort others too. In the dim glow of autumn evenings, sitting in a circle of people once labeled weak, I felt stronger than I ever had. On the day of the trial, the air froze as I stepped into the courtroom. My heart pounded, not from fear anymore, but from knowing this moment would decide everything. Whether I remained suffocated beneath the perfect family facade my parents had built, or finally breathed as a free person. Across from me sat Colton with his lawyer, his eyes angry, slightly unsettled. My parents sat behind, cold and rigid, as if everything was some foolish spectacle I had staged. Mother looked at me with a warning in her eyes. "You'll regret it if you speak." But this time I did not bow my head. Their lawyer began by describing Colton as a talented young man, sometimes hot-tempered but full of potential, trying to frame everything as a minor family disagreement. Each word was a match to my anger. They wanted to paint me as unstable, a hysterical daughter. When it was my turn, I pushed myself up and inhaled slowly, my hands slightly shaking but my voice clear. I have stayed silent my entire life. Every time Colton got angry, I was taught to endure, to hide it to protect the family's reputation. But keeping quiet never protected me. It only allowed him to keep hurting me. I turned toward Colton. You call this an accident? No. It was a blow you chose to make. And it wasn't the first. The room buzzed. Father flushed red, mother stared down. Their lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand for me to continue. I saw neighbors, co-workers, people who once believed in the Harris family myth, now witnessing it crumble. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to say no one, not even family, has the right to use violence to control another person. Their lawyer tried to counter, praising Colton's achievements and community work, but the words fell flat. The bruises on my body, hospital records, witness reports told the truth. When the judge sentenced Colton to probation, mandatory anger management and community service, I exhaled deeply. My parents sat as still as stone, knowing their polished image had shattered in the most public way. That day, the local newspaper headline read, "Harris family, once iconic, now facing dark truths." The whispers were no longer about me, but about the hypocrisy they had hidden. As I walked out of court, Melanie rushed forward and hugged me. Aunt Martha was nearby, her eyes red-rimmed. A member of the medical board called out, "Fallon, we'd like to invite you to join a community project on domestic abuse. We need real voices like yours." Never had I imagined that my painful story could one day help others. But in that moment, I knew staying quiet could never be my path again. I glanced back at the courthouse, then turned to Aunt Martha and Melanie, smiling softly. Maybe this is truly my beginning. I moved into a small apartment near the lake. The balcony overlooked the water, where mornings sparkled like shards of glass. The largest room, rather than becoming a living room, became my studio. The scent of oil paint, sketch paper, and charcoal drifted through the space, a fragrance I once thought I'd never breathe again. Aunt Martha often visited on weekends, bringing fruit, pastries, or just tea, and sitting quietly as I painted. One time she smiled and said, I once thought I had no strength left to believe in family. But then I realized sometimes family is made of those who choose to stay, not those who share your blood." Her words made me pause, charcoal still in my hand as I felt old wounds soften. Melanie remained my steadfast friend. She often appeared at my door unannounced, coffee and pastries in hand. One day, seeing an unfinished painting, she beamed, "Fallon, this one takes my breath away. I used to worry you'd never return to color, but look, you're brighter than ever." I smiled and said quietly, "Maybe because now I paint not for anyone else's approval, but for myself." Over time, I met Daniel, a local architect. We bumped into each other at a neighborhood art exhibit when he paused in front of one of my abstract pieces. He said warmly, "I don't know much about painting, but this one feels powerful. Like a crack, filled with light from within." No one had ever described my art that way. We started talking, then met again at a cafe by the lake, then walked beneath the trees on slow afternoons. Daniel never pushed, never judged, just listened. With him, I felt at ease, as though I no longer had to perform for anyone. One night, writing in my journal by the lake, I reflected on the year behind me. I wrote, "A year ago I fell and fractured bones. Each breath felt like being stabbed, and I feared I'd never rise again. But as my ribs healed, I found my backbone too. I refused to tremble in anyone else's shadow now. I stand tall, held up by my own strength." Ripples danced across the water, reflecting distant city lights. I closed the journal and exhaled deeply. I knew I had stepped out of darkness and into the light of a true family, the ones who never abandoned me, and into a new version of myself, stronger and freer than ever. What do you think about my journey? From being rejected by my own blood family to discovering strength and a true family beyond genetics. Do you believe family always comes from blood, or from those who are willing to stand beside us through life's storms? Share your thoughts. Your story might resonate with someone else who needs it. And if you'd like to keep hearing real stories about family, resilience, and the courage to rise after heartbreak, don't forget to follow the channel so we can continue this heartfelt journey together.